The wind that night was cruel, sharp as a knife drawn across the plains. Dry Willow Town lay half asleep, its lanterns shivering in the cold. Behind Brady's mercantile, a woman crouched in the dirt, holding her ribs with one arm and her youngest daughter with the other. Her name was Ella Lark. 3 little girls huddled around her, Clara, June, and Addie, too quiet for children, their eyes too old for their years. From the open door, Brady's voice came again, slurred with whiskey and anger. "You give me 3 useless mouths and not one son. What's a man supposed to do with that?" he spat, throwing his empty bottle against the wall. Townsfolk watched from the boardwalk, but no one moved. In the West, a man's home was his law, and cruelty could hide behind closed doors. Then, the crowd parted and silence spread like a ripple in water. A massive figure stepped forward, broad shoulders, long coat heavy with dust, hat brim low over calm eyes. Cain Ashford, the rancher from the AA spread. People said he could break. A horse with a glance and quiet a room with one word. He looked at Brady, then at the woman on the ground. "Enough," he said. The word rolled low and certain. "Get your girls, Miss Lark," Brady laughed, a hard, mocking sound. "You stay out of this, Ashford. This here's my wife. She belongs to me." Cain's jaw flexed once. "She belongs to no man who raises a hand to her." He took one step forward, the kind of step that turns a street cold. "Come with me," he said again, his eyes fixed on Ella, not on Brady. Ella trembled. "They'll say I'm stealing away," she whispered. "Then I'll say you're leaving," Cain answered. "And you won't be alone." Brady lunged, but before he could reach her, Maeve O'Reilly, the town's midwife and widow, stepped between them. Her shawl whipped in the wind. "Touch her again, Brady, and you'll answer to every woman you've ever scorned." The sheriff appeared at the alley's edge, but his star shone dull under the lamplight. He hesitated, seeing Cain's hand resting on the butt of his revolver. No threats, no words. Just a promise in silence. Ella gathered her children. Clara took her hand, June clutched her skirt, and Addie leaned against her shoulder. The air was so still it hurt. Then she stood. Cain shrugged off his coat and laid it across her shoulders. It hung heavy and warm, smelling of saddle leather and rain. "Let's go," he said. No one stopped them. The crowd stepped aside as the woman and her daughters walked past, the giant rancher behind them like a wall against the world. Outside, town. His wagon waited. 2 strong mares, steam rising from their nostrils. A Norwegian hand, Leif Hansen, tipped his hat. "You sure, boss?" "No," Cain said simply. "But it's right." They climbed aboard. As the wagon rolled into the open plains, Dry Willow faded behind them, its lights small as candle flames against the dark. The road stretched long, the stars sharp and cold. Ella finally spoke. "Why help me?" Cain rode alongside, his voice low. "My father told me once, a man's worth is in what he protects. You've got 3 reasons worth more than land or gold." The girls fell asleep before dawn. The wagon creaked through frost, carrying the weight of 4 lives pulled from ruin. Ahead, over the dark hills, the faint light of Cain's ranch flickered, a place where the wind might finally soften, and for the first time in years, Ella Lark dared to believe the world might let her start again. The dawn broke gray over the Double O Ranch, the sky smeared with frost and faint color. The wagon creaked into the yard as chickens scattered and dogs barked once, curious but not unfriendly. Smoke curled from the kitchen chimney, steady, alive. For the first time in years, Ella Lark smelled warmth before she felt it. Cain Ashford dismounted his horse and helped her down. His hands were large and calloused, but careful. He lifted the sleeping Addie into his arms as if she were spun from glass. "This way," he said, leading her toward the ranch house. Inside, the air was thick with coffee, bread, and something else. Peace. A Lakota woman named Wind Follows Snow looked up from a pot of stew and nodded. "You brought them," she said simply. Her dark eyes swept over the children, reading bruises, fear, hunger. "They'll need rest, and so will you." Ella could hardly speak. Every nerve in her body waited for someone to shout, for a door to slam, for the world to punish her for daring to stand upright. But the room stayed quiet. The children sank into chairs and stared at the stew like it was treasure. Cain hung his hat, poured himself coffee, and leaned against the doorframe. "You can stay as long as you need," he said. "I've work here, plenty of it. If you want to earn your way, there's room for that too." "Earn," Ella repeated softly, the word strange on her tongue. "You'd pay me?" "You work. You get paid," he said. "That's how it should be." Wind Follows Snow placed bowls in front of the girls, who didn't wait for permission. "You'll help in the kitchen," she told Ella. "You'll learn the horses, and you'll sleep on the east side, the room where morning comes soft." Ella blinked. "That sounds kind." The Lakota woman gave a faint smile. "Kindness isn't weakness. It's survival." That day moved slow, as if the ranch itself was testing her. Wind Follows Snow showed her the garden, the barn, the creek frozen thin with ice. Leif Hansen mended a gate and tipped his hat whenever she passed, his words few but warm. The girls followed everywhere, discovering the world. Beyond fences, dogs to pet, chickens to chase, freedom that made them laugh for the first time in months. By evening, the wind shifted colder. A storm was building in the north. Cain returned from the range, his coat lined with snow. "Bad weather coming," he said. "We'll hunker down tonight." Ella nodded, setting the last plate on the table. Her hands still shook when she touched the dishes, expecting to drop one and hear shouting, but no shouting came. As supper ended, Maeve O'Reilly arrived, her shawl dusted white. "I came to see the woman everyone's whispering about," she said, her Irish lilt warm and bold. She looked Ella over and smiled gently. "You're safe now, love. That's all that matters. But not everyone would think so." Miles away, in Dry Willow, Brady paced his empty house, cursing the snow and the man who'd taken his property. He would not let it rest, not while his pride still bled. That night, the storm came howling. Snow lashed the windows, and the ranch seemed to breathe under its weight. Cain checked the stables twice, ensuring every animal had shelter. When he returned, he found Ella sitting by the fire, mending a small dress torn at the sleeve. "You don't have to do that tonight," he said. She smiled faintly. "I've spent years doing what I didn't have to. This is different." The firelight caught her face, soft and tired and brave. Cain looked away before the warmth in his chest grew too strong. "Rest well," he said, voice low. "You're safe here." Outside, the snow fell deep. The world that had once turned against her was buried in white silence. Inside, her daughters slept near the hearth, their breathing steady, their small hands curled in peace. And for the first time since her wedding day, Ella Lark didn't dream of escape. She dreamed of belonging. The storm passed in the night, leaving the world dressed in white silence. The sky the next morning was pale blue, the air sharp and clean. Cain Ashford was already outside before dawn, chopping ice from the horse troughs, steam rising from his breath. Inside the house, the smell of coffee and biscuits drifted through the hall. Wind follows. Snow hummed a Lakota lullaby while stirring stew, and the children's laughter echoed faintly from the kitchen. Ella stood by the window, wrapped in a shawl, watching him. She hadn't known men like that existed. Men who worked, without shouting, who spoke gently to horses, who made space for others without asking anything in return. Every part of her wanted to trust it, but old fear was a stubborn ghost. When Cain came in, snow clung to his coat. "Mornin'," he said, hanging it by the fire. How are the girls? They're warm. That's more than they've had in a long time. She hesitated, then added, "Thank you for all this." He poured coffee into a tin cup. "Don't thank me. Just live." Later, wind follows. Snow handed Ella a pair of gloves and led her to the stables. "You'll help me with the mares today," she said. "They're gentle, but they can smell fear." Ella's heart thudded. She hadn't been near a horse since childhood. But as she brushed the dappled mare's flank, something loosened inside her, a small, steady courage she thought she'd lost. Wind follows. Snow nodded with approval. "See? The horse listens. You breathe steady, she breathes steady. The body remembers peace when you let it." That afternoon, Cain returned from the south pasture with news. "Fence lines down by the ridge," he said. "Brady's cattle. Crossed over. Could be an accident, but—" His eyes hardened. "I doubt it." Ella froze. "He's still looking for us?" "A man like Brady doesn't forgive being made small," Cain said. "But he won't touch you again. Not while you're here." As night fell, the ranch gathered around the fire. Maeve arrived with bread and gossip. "Town's stirring," she said. "Brady's telling folks you kidnapped his wife. Says you'll hang for it." Cain didn't flinch. "The sheriff's no fool. He saw the truth that night." "Still," Maeve warned, "words travel faster than justice in this country." Ella looked at the flames, her hands trembling around her cup. "I don't want anyone hurt because of me." Cain's gaze softened. "You and your girls didn't bring trouble. You ran from it. Don't mistake surviving for sin." Outside, coyotes cried over the snowfields. The wind pressed against the walls like it was listening. When the children were asleep, Ella found herself alone by the fire. Cain entered quietly, setting his hat aside. "The fence'll need mending come morning," he said. "Do you ever stop working?" she asked, a faint smile in her voice. "No, work's the only thing that keeps a man honest." He paused, studying her. "You've got grit, Ella. The West eats the weak. You're still standing." Her eyes met his, steady now. "I had to stand for them," she said softly. "But maybe I can learn to stand for myself, too." Cain nodded. "You already are." For a long moment, neither spoke. The fire crackled, snow slid from the roof, and the sound of the wind became almost gentle. Somewhere in that silence, a fragile trust began to take shape, something neither of them dared to name. And beyond the hills, unseen in the dark, Brady's riders were already saddling up. The next morning broke colder, the air so crisp it stung to breathe. Cain and Leaf rode out early to mend the fence by the ridge, while Wind Follows Snow stayed with the girls to teach them small chores, fetching water, tending the hens, mending torn sleeves. The house felt quieter than usual, but beneath that, quiet. Tension hummed like a wire pulled too tight. Ella tried to keep busy. She kneaded bread, chopped kindling, swept the porch. Every sound of hoofbeats made her look up. She told herself it was only wind or cattle moving on the plain, but the feeling in her chest said otherwise. By noon, the riders came. 3 men wrapped in dusters, their faces half hidden by scarves. Brady's men. She knew them by their horses, by the cruel set of their shoulders. They reined up near the gate, one holding a rifle too loose to be casual. Wind follows. Snow stepped from the doorway, steady as stone. "You're on private land," she said. The man in front smirked. "We're just looking for a lost woman and 3 kids. Seems they wandered off from town." Ella froze behind the doorframe, clutching the edge of it so tightly her knuckles whitened. Wind follows. Snow's voice didn't change. "No one's lost here." Before the men could answer, hoofbeats thundered from the ridge. Cain and Leif were returning, their silhouettes cutting through the pale sky. The riders shifted uneasily. Cain dismounted before his horse even stopped, his coat flaring behind him. "You're trespassing," he said, his voice low but carrying. "And you've got about 10 seconds to turn around," the leader spat into the snow. "We just want what's ours." "She's not yours," Cain growled. "Law says she is," the man shot back. Cain stepped closer, snow crunching under his boots. "The law also says a man who lays a hand on a woman can be buried with his boots off if he tries it again." The air went still. Leaf's rifle gleamed just enough to remind them he wasn't decoration. Finally, the riders pulled their reins and turned. As they left, one called over his shoulder, "This ain't over, Ashford. Brady'll have his revenge." When they were gone, wind follows snow let out the breath she'd been holding. "Wolves travel in packs," she murmured. "He'll be back." Cain nodded grimly. "I know." That night the ranch felt smaller, wrapped in the sound of wind clawing the shutters. Cain stayed awake, sitting by the fire with his rifle across his knees. When Ella came out, he looked up, weary but alert. "You should rest," she said softly. "Not yet," he replied. "The West teaches a man that peace is something you guard, not something you wait for." She sat across from him. "You can't fight the whole world for me, Cain." "Maybe not," he said, eyes on the fire. "But I can fight the peace of it that tries to take you." The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was full. Something had changed since the night she'd left town. Fear had become something else. Not gone, but tempered. Outside, the moon hung over the snowfields, bright as steel. Inside, her daughters slept safe and warm. Ella watched Cain's broad shoulders, the way the firelight caught in his hair, and she felt a strange ache. Something she hadn't let herself feel in years, hope. And when the wind howled again, it didn't sound like warning anymore. It sounded like the beginning of a fight worth winning. The days that followed were uneasy. Snow still blanketed the land, but it no longer felt peaceful. Cain tightened patrols around the ranch, checking the fence lines twice a day. Leaf kept, his rifle close and wind follows. Snow taught the girls to stay inside when the dogs barked at night. Every sound carried weight. Every shadow could be danger. Ella tried to hide her worry from the children, but Cain could see it. One evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, he found her standing by the corral, her hands gripping the fence rail. "They won't stop," she said quietly. "Men like Brady don't let go." Cain stood beside her, the fading light brushing his face. "Then he'll have to learn how it feels to lose." She turned toward him, her eyes tired but strong. "You could lose too, Cain. Your land, your name, everything you've built." He shook his head. "A man's worth isn't in his land. It's in what he protects. And I'll protect you. All of you." The words came out like a vow, and for the first time Ella believed them. 2 nights later, the storm broke. This one not of weather, but of men. The dog started barking first, sharp and frantic. Wind follows snow rushed to gather the children, her calm voice steadying them. Leaf shouted from outside, "Riders, coming fast!" Cain was already at the door, rifle in hand. "Stay low," he told Ella. "Keep the girls behind the table." Hooves thundered closer, the sound echoing across the frozen ground. Through the window, torches flickered. 4 riders this time, Brady among them. His face gleamed cruel in the firelight. "Ashford," he shouted, "bring her out, or I'll burn this place to the ground." Cain stepped onto the porch. "You ride. 1 step closer and you won't ride back." Brady laughed, a bitter sound swallowed by the wind. "You think you can steal my wife and live? You think that farmhand coat of yours means a damn thing?" Cain raised his rifle. "She stopped being your wife the moment you raised your hand to her." The standoff hung in the cold, every breath a cloud. Then a single shot cracked through the night. Brady fired first. The bullet splintered a post beside Cain. Leif's rifle answered instantly, striking the torch from another rider's hand. Chaos broke loose. Horses reared, shouts filled the dark. Cain moved with calm precision, firing once, twice, never wasting a bullet. Wind follows, snow held the children close in the kitchen, whispering prayers older than any church. Brady dismounted and charged forward, pistol raised. Cain met. Him halfway in the snow. They collided hard, the gun skidding away. Fists swung, grunts and curses tangled with the wind. Brady fought like a cornered wolf, but Cain fought like a man defending his own soul. When it ended, Brady lay face down in the snow, his breath shallow, his fight gone. Cain stood over him, chest heaving, the rifle in his hand steady. "You ever come near her again," he said, voice low and final, "and I'll bury you myself." Brady's men pulled him up and rode off into the dark, leaving only the smell of smoke and trampled snow behind. When Cain turned back to the house, Ella was there in the doorway, the lantern's glow soft around her. Her hands trembled, but her gaze was steady. "Is it over?" she asked. "It is now," he said. She stepped forward, the cold forgotten, her daughters watching from behind the curtain. "You didn't have to do this," she whispered. Cain's voice gentled. "I did. Because you and those girls deserve a life where fear doesn't knock at your door." For a long moment they stood in silence. Then, slowly, Ella reached out, resting her hand against his chest. Maybe this is what starting over feels like." He took her hand in his, rough fingers closing softly around it. "No, Ella," he said. "This is what living feels like." By spring, the snow melted and wildflowers began to creep through the fields. The girls learned to ride. Laughter replaced silence. Wind follows. Snow taught them songs of new beginnings, and Maeve visited often, bringing stories and bread. As for Cain and Ella, they never spoke of love the way storybooks did. They lived it in the quiet ways, shared work, shared hope, shared dawns that no longer carried fear. And when travelers passed through Dry Willow, they'd sometimes hear talk of a giant rancher and the woman he saved, a man who gave her back her life, and a woman who taught him what it meant to have one worth living.